name is Chelsea and welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be doing the books and makeup tag. Now this was a video I had originally seen on Catty-tastic and Haley and Bookland's channel. I do not know who actually started this tag because it seems like the origins of it have disappeared, but I thought this was an amazing thing to do. However, I don't always wear makeup, so it took me a little while to get ready for this, but I am going to be going and getting my passport picture taken later, and so I figured I might as well do my makeup today. So let's get right on into it. So the first makeup item and question that they have on here is going to be primer. I'm going to be using the Smashbox Original Photo Finish Primer. I'm going to have everything linked down below for you guys, but the question for this is pick a book that has left a lasting impression. And for the book, I'm going to be choosing Artemis Fowl by Owen Colfer. I read this in 2001 when I was back in elementary school. And I actually ended up purchasing this book through the Scholastic book ordering programs. They give you these small magazine sort of things that you then get to take home, show your parents, and you pick through the Scholastic published books and you order them. You send in your order form to your teacher, and then later on you do receive the books in school. Because it is through the Scholastic book program, it was very easy to get books in a paperback version that were still out in hardcover. So I actually had the original cover of this one. I will put that right here. And I had this one in the paperback version, even though in 2001 it still was a hardcover book. And I remember absolutely loving this. I actually had that first version completely trashed. It looked horrible, and so I ended up picking up these newer covers back when these first came out, because I had book 1, book 2, book 4, and book 6, I believe, out of the 7-book series. So none of them were matching. Half of them were paperback, half of them were hardcover, and I don't even know if they made the 7th book in the original type of covers or if they went straight to this new version. But I absolutely love this series. This follows Artemis Fowl, who is our main character. He is a boy of, I believe, 11 in the first book. He is sort of a genius slash criminal mastermind, and in the first book he ends up kidnapping a fairy to try and get a hold of their, I guess, ransom money for her. This is an amazing series. The characters are extremely likable. Even now, when I think I reread them when I was at least 23 or 24, and the books still hold up today. It is a 7-book series, and each book has a conclusion to each story. However, there is the overall arc. We have some of the main characters throughout the books, and Owen Colfer is a great writer. He includes tons of humor in it, as well as the adventure aspects, and each character is fully formed and realized. So even though this is a book that I first picked up when I was 11, I still absolutely love this today, and I do think it left a lasting impression. Product is going to be foundation. I will be using the Tarte Amazonian Clay Foundation. This is in the shade Ivory, and the question is, pick your favorite first book in a series. For that is going to be Blackbirds by Chuck Wendig. This is an adult sci-fi fantasy series. This is the first book in the Miriam Black series, because our main character is named Miriam Black. Now, when she touches people, can see their deaths. This is definitely an adult series here. It has lots of humor and thriller elements to it because she ends up seeing a death that she is hoping to save the person. However, most of the time that does not happen. If she sees something and tries to fix it, she usually is the one that ends up causing the death. But our character was the main reason I fell in love with this series. She is, at least when I first read it, was completely different than anybody I had ever read about. She is crass, she is rude, she curses all the time. She is not a very likable character at first, but I did still really like her. She has very interesting ways of dealing with her problems, and this, again, is a very adult series, but Chuck Wendig has a great way of taking some of those uncomfortable elements but making them humorous, but only slightly, because there is still a lot of anxiety like through this. I don't know if I'm exactly saying that right, but I absolutely love this series. If you're looking for something off the beaten path, I do think this is a good series to jump into some of the adult works in the sci-fi fantasy genres. Using is concealer. This is the Cover Perfection Tip Concealer from the same. This is a Korean brand, and I do use this in the shade 1. And for our question, we have pick a character that you wish you could get rid of. And I am going to be going with the character of Light Yagami from Death Note. I like anime and manga, which you guys know if you've watched my channel, and this one is a series that I absolutely loved when it first started. I watched the anime first, and this character is our main character, but he is so unlikable. I've had arguments with people about why they like this character, and I personally feel that at the beginning he had some redeeming qualities, but as this series goes on, he gets worse and worse. He is not a redeemable character, and he's the main character. I had no liking for this character whatsoever. This whole series revolves around the fact that a Shinigami, which is like a death god in Japanese culture, dropped a death note, which is a book, a notebook, that if you write down somebody's full name, they're gonna end up dying. You could choose how, or you can just leave it up to fate, sort of thing. But this character here, our main character of Light Yagami, decides to use this book for good, in the fact that he starts killing off murderers, or suspected murderers. And again, you're gonna have to either read this or watch this to really know, and I probably would not suggest the Netflix movie. Netflix does have the anime on there, watch that instead. But I just do not like this main character. He has no redeemable qualities, and if I was gonna pick anybody, it would be him. If they could have killed this character off like in the beginning and then done something else with this whole series, I would have been so much happier with that. Be using is powder. This is the Tarte Amazonian Clay Smooth Operator Finishing Powder. And the question we have for powder is, pick your favorite last book in a series. For this one, I'm going to be going with Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. I absolutely love her Mortal Instruments series, including the Mortal Instruments, the Infernal Devices, and the Dark Artifices. However, I do feel like this might have been one of my favorite last books in a series. This series here, the Infernal Devices, is only a trilogy, and so this is the third and final book in the series. However, they do interconnect with her other works. I really just liked the characters in this series a whole lot. There's not as many major characters in this series as in like the Mortal Instruments or the Dark Artifices, and this one was a book from her. All of her books do this to some extent, where I don't know what's gonna happen and it just takes me on a complete ride. But this one here like blew my mind when I first read it. I could not believe the things that were currently going on when it was going on, and I just absolutely love this series. This one here is sort of like a prequel series to the Mortal Instruments. There's still shadow hunters and demons and all the extra creatures that we're used to, but this one happens in the Londons, and I believe around the 1800s, and I absolutely love the characters. I don't think there's many people that don't know about this series on BookTube, but if you're looking for a way to jump into the Shadowhunters world and you don't want to read these 6 books in the Mortal Instruments series, I do feel like this is a good way to jump in, and I actually preferred this one a little bit more than the Mortal Instruments. Now, the next product that we were supposed to be using on here is eyebrows. However, I don't do my eyebrows. I think the only time I've ever actually had my eyebrows done was for my wedding day, and those were very, very lightly done. I have no idea exactly how to do them, so I'm gonna skip doing them, but we are still gonna do the question. The question for eyebrows is a book that you think everyone should read. And for that one, I'm gonna be picking the Lord of the Rings trilogy by J.R.R. Tolkien. This one here is the first book in the series because even though they're technically one major book, like he wanted it to be one whole book, it is split up into 3 books, so like a trilogy. This one here is my original copy that I believe I got in middle school, and if you guys can see it, it is actually quite beat up. This is like before I was very, very careful with the spines of my book. I do have I think one other whole trilogy of the Lord of the Rings that it has a different cover. It's not the movie covers either, but they're not nearly as beat up. If I go for a reread of these, which I do every couple years or so, these are the versions I do. They're already beat up in the mass market version, so of course. But I originally read this in 8th grade, and I have been doing a reread almost every year to every other year of this series. I'm actually due for that, but I absolutely love this. I think I've read it at least 8 times over the course of my life. And this is a great epic fantasy series. I believe this is one of like the major classic fantasy series. If you've seen the movies are great. Absolutely great. I actually believe I saw the first one before I did the series. But there are things in here that are just different than the movies. The overall arc of it is the same, but there's little details and extra little characters that are just not in the actual movies. And there are certain aspects of the books that I just still love even to this day. And so while I do a marathon of the Lord of the Rings movies, I believe once a year as well, I believe this is a book that everybody should at least attempt to read. And we're moving on to eyeshadow. So I have a few different products for eyeshadow. Again, I will list everything down below, but we are going to be using the Beautique Alaskan Avalanche Loose Powder. This is from a Korean brand. We also have Secret Kiss Holic Pigment. I'm actually not sure if that's the color of it or not. Everything else is in Korean, so I'm not entirely sure. And we are going to be using the Glitter and Glow Stila eyeshadow in Smoldering Satin. The question that goes along with eyeshadow is pick a book that has your favorite colors on the cover. Now, my favorite color right now is a mix between a navy blue and a normal blue, but my favorite color before that was also teal. So I went with Ernest Cline's Armada. This is the same author that did Ready Player One, which has been huge, and I absolutely love the book as well as the movie, but this is the second book that he wrote. This one follows a main character who, again, is sort of a, I want to say late teens, early 20s guy who plays video games, and one day an invasion comes down and he has to try and help save the planet by like piloting a virtual reality sort of spaceship. I really like this one, not as much as Ready Player One, but I think it was still great. But I absolutely love the cover of this book. It has a very nice sort of navy blue with the, it reminds me almost of like Space Invaders sort of vibes, like just an old 80s video game cover. And even the inside is really, really pretty. So we have this navy blue cover with like the silver sort of spaceship stuff on it, and the inside dust jacket is a like blueprint. It's just gorgeous. I absolutely love the people that did this book, and so just super pretty. And then the brushes I'm going to be using for my eyeshadow, these are actually the original Storybook Cosmetics Harry Potter wand brushes. I guess maybe I should do it this way so you guys can see them. They do not have these out any longer. However, they do have other sort of wand brushes and other really cool geeky brushes and makeup that you guys can look at. I will link them down below as well. Will be eyeliner. I actually do use 2 eyeliners. I use the CoverGirl Perfect Point Plus eye pencil in charcoal for my tight line, And then I also use the Wonder Drawing liquid eyeliner from Holika Holika. This I use for my normal eyeliner. And the question for eyeliner, pick a dark and mysterious book. For that one, I will be choosing the Blackstone Chronicles by John Saul. This was actually a serial series, so this one contains 6 books that were released, 1 per month. And it's actually not a whole like big book per month. These were very like almost like novella sized books. And the whole point of a serial was to have a short, pretty much complete little section of a story that when put together made an overall story arc. This one here, each little story piece gives us one small mystery from this town, and the very last book completely ties them all together. So in this book here, this one, every single story there is some weird sort of artifact that is delivered to a family's doorstep. The artifact came from their old condemned insane asylum in their town, and each time an artifact is delivered, somebody is mysteriously murdered. I absolutely love this series. I think, again, I read this years ago and eventually had to pick it up in an actual book form. I don't remember if I borrowed it from somebody else or not, but I did not own this for a while. But I absolutely love this. I've read it a few times already, and I believe, I'm pretty sure I remember the whodunit, but the second time I read it, after it had been a while, I couldn't remember until like the last book. This has great mystery elements, especially because it is in that serial form. We get to learn a little bit about the town in each book. There's a different murder in each book, and we have no idea who actually did it until the very last one. John Saul is another really, really good horror author. I absolutely love most of his work. I have not read everything, but this was what got me started on him. And again, if you like sort of like mystery thrillers that could have supernatural elements in it, I would definitely recommend picking him up. This is a great one to start off with as well. Mascara. I have the CoverGirl Lash Blast Volume Mascara, and I do believe this is in, I think, the blackest one they have. The question that we have for mascara is pick a long book. There is no way I could do a list like this without picking out a Stephen King book, and of course, we're gonna go with It. This book here is a chunker of a book. I originally read a different cover of this, but I originally read Stephen King's It in 8th grade. Not the best way to do it probably when you have your teachers calling your parents saying, hey, did you know she's reading a book like this? But I absolutely love this book. This is another one that I originally read in middle school and have read every other year or so for a while. I actually believe I've read this one around 8 times. And my battery's dying. Let's fix that. Okay, let's get back into this. So the long book that I picked was Stephen King's It. This book here is 1,153 pages long. It is probably the longest book I have ever read, and it is really, really good. It is the first Stephen King book that I read, and it made me fall in love with his work, and I've read plenty of other books by him, and I still think this is gonna be like, this is my favorite book by him. So of course I had to include it as the long book. Tony Moly Crystal Blusher. This is in the shade 3, I guess. It's like a peachy color. And the question for blush is pick a book that had a cringe-worthy romance. I had the hardest time picking a book for this question only because I sometimes seem to like forget things that I did not like in books. Like if I liked everything else about a book, I might not remember some of the smaller details that I didn't like, and if I really didn't like a book, especially if it was like a romance or a different book that had a really cringy romance in it, I probably didn't rate it very well and got rid of it. So the book I ended up picking for this one is Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince. The main reason I picked this one is for the Ron and Lavender romance. I just never really liked them together, and I'm pretty sure most people didn't. And the way they were acting, yes, they're teenagers, and it's just a really interesting sort of romance in the first place. But I do feel like it was probably the cringiest one I could have picked out of the books I currently own. Another product that I do not use is highlighter. So again, I'm not going to be putting it on, but we will answer the question. And that is going to be, pick a book that brightened your day. For me, that is going to be Song of the Sparrow by Lisa Ann Sandel. This is another book that I got forever ago, it feels like. I think this actually is another sort of Scholastic book. I don't remember if this is one that I got from the Scholastic Book Fair or if it was just one that I picked up at the store. But this one is copyrighted of 2007, so I at least picked this up around the end of high school. This one here is a book that, again, I have read multiple times. I absolutely love it, but not very many people end up talking about it. This one is a book that is written in verse, so it's very, very similar to Ellen Hopkins, that kind of thing. This one here deals with Arthurian legend, sort of. This one here actually follows our main character of Elaine, who is the daughter of a soldier in King Arthur's army. So this does not have the sort of mythological elements that some of King Arthur's stories do, but this has more of the real life sort of story. She is the only woman pretty much around the band of King Arthur's men. She lives with her father and her brothers, and she's pretty much the only girl. She sort of grew up around soldiers and knights. And in this book, Guinevere ends up showing up, and Elaine thinks they're going to be friends. Doesn't quite work out that way at first, but when the men go off to battle, both of these women find out that there is some sort of trap or plot, and they need to then tell King Arthur what's going to happen. I absolutely love Elaine in this story. She is very heroic and brave, but at the same time very believable, because I believe she's supposed to be like 16 or 17 in this story. It is a very, very quick read because of the way that it is written, and it is one that every single time I read it, it flies by, and I really do wish there was more of this story, and I'm not even sure if the author's written too much else either. I would really love to find more from her. And then we're gonna move right on to lipstick. Now, the lipstick that I'm gonna be using today is actually a Dear Darling tint. This is from Etude House, which is another Korean brand. And this color, I'm not entirely sure what the color of this is. I believe it was something like orange red. Focus, please. I believe it was something like orange red. And the question for lipstick is your favorite book kiss. For this one, I picked up Anne of the Island by L.M. Montgomery. This is the third book in the Anne of Green Gables series. I absolutely love this series. It has been a while since I have read them, and I don't think I ever actually finished. I do believe I finished this one for sure, and maybe the fourth one. But this is the third book of the series, and it takes this long to get our kiss from Anne and Gilbert. I absolutely fell in love with Gilbert when I was reading these books. I think he was my first book and celebrity crush, probably maybe my first crush at all, and I absolutely loved this series. I love Anne as a character. I love the world that Ellen Montgomery is writing and the way that it's done, especially since this is, I don't know if it's technically a historical series or if it was just written so long ago that it now feels like a historical series to me, but I absolutely love this. Everything was written so well, and even though it takes us 3 books to get to the main romance aspects of it, it is a great ride throughout. This author is amazing with the characters and the world building, and there was so much payoff in this book. It was just amazing. That was my books and makeup tag, I guess. I was not tagged to do this challenge, but I just thought it would be really, really fun to do. If you guys liked this video, give it a thumbs up to let me know. Leave me a comment down below letting me know if you've read any of these books, because I would love to hear from you guys. Subscribe to this channel if you would like to see more videos. I do have videos up every Monday and Thursday, so I will see you then. Bye!